Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're jumping right into something pretty big. This global race to build the next generation of fighter jets.
That's right. The sixth generation aircraft.
Exactly. You might remember Donald Trump talking about America's F-47 from Boeing. Made it sound totally new. But the thing is, this isn't just a U.S. thing, is it?
No, absolutely not. It's happening everywhere. China's shown off a prototype. People are calling it the J-36. Looks very stealthy. Huge blended wing design.
Okay.
Then you've got the Tempest project. That's the UK, Italy, and Japan working together. They're aiming for, what, 2035?
Around then, yeah.
And don't forget the Future Combat Air System, FCAS. That's France, Germany, Spain. Their target is more like 2040.
So it's definitely a worldwide effort. Everyone's looking ahead.
It really is. Shows how seriously nations are taking the future of air combat.
Okay, so sixth generation. Yeah, help us out here. What actually makes these jets different? We've had jets for ages. What's the big leap?
Yeah, good question. It helps to think in generations. You had the first jets right after World War II. Then, say, the fourth gen, still very common. Think F-16s.
Oh, okay. Yeah, see those everywhere.
Then came the fifth generation. That was a big step. Things like serious stealth, flying supersonic without dumping fuel with afterburners, really advanced computers, F-35, F-22. Those are the classic examples.
Right. Stealth and computers were key for fifth gen. So for this sixth generation, the F-47, J-36, Tempest, what's the defining thing? What's the next big shift?
Well, what's really striking looking at all these different projects is one common feature. They're all bigger.
Bigger?
Yeah, noticeably bigger than the current top jets, bigger than China's J-20, bigger than the European Typhoon, even bigger than the F-35 and F-22.
Okay.
And that size increase, it's not just for looks. It tells you something fundamental about how they think air combat is going to change.
Bigger planes. All right, let's dig into that. Why are they growing? What changes are they expecting that make size so important?
Well, one huge factor is the threat from the ground. Surface-to-air missiles, SAMs, are just getting better and better, more widespread.
We've definitely seen how effective they can be recently, like in Ukraine.
Exactly. That's a huge lesson learned. So to survive in that kind of environment, these new planes need much better stealth. They need to be harder to detect by radar.
Makes sense. Don't get seen, don't get shot down. But how does making a plane bigger help it be stealthier? That seems backwards.
It's about the shape and what's hanging off it. See, for really good stealth, you need smooth, clean surfaces. Anything sticking out like bombs or missiles under the wings reflects radar signals like crazy.
Ah.
So to get that next level of stealth, you basically have to carry your weapons inside the plane, internal weapon bays.
Hidden inside the fuselage.
Precisely. And if you want to carry a decent number of weapons internally, well, you just need a bigger airframe to fit them in.
Got it. Internal bays need more space.
Yeah.
Okay, so enhanced stealth is one driver. What's the next big thing pushing these larger designs?
The other major trend is where the fighting happens. Air-to-air combat is increasingly happening at longer distances, beyond visual range or BVR.
Right.
If you look back, in the 70s, only a few kills were BVR. By the 90s, early 2000s, it was over half, and the missiles just keep getting longer legs.
So pilots might be shooting down enemies they literally can't see. That's different from the dogfights we imagine.
Very different. Think about missile ranges now. Europe's Meteor missile, that's about 200 kilometers. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But then you look at America's AM-174B or China's PL-17, reports say they could reach out maybe 400 kilometers.
400 kilometers. Wow.
Yeah. So to target effectively at those ranges, and just as importantly, to defend against missiles coming at you from that far away, you need incredibly powerful sensors. You need advanced electronic warfare gear.
And all that tech takes up space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Space for the gear itself, space for the power generation it needs, and space to get rid of the heat it produces. It all adds up inside the aircraft.
Okay, so bigger for stealthy weapons, bigger for long-range sensors, and EW gear. What else? Any other reasons for the size increase?
Another really big one is vulnerability on the ground. Air bases themselves are becoming targets for long-range missiles.
Right. You can't fight if your planes get destroyed before they take off.
Precisely. So the thinking is you need planes that can operate from much farther away, from safer bases. The U.S., for instance, is worried about bases in Japan being in range of Chinese missiles.
So they're looking at places further out.
Yeah, planning to disperse aircraft, maybe operate more from Australia or islands out in the Pacific, much farther from the potential front lines.
Which means the planes themselves need much longer range. How do they get that? Just bigger fuel tanks?
Bigger tanks are definitely part of it, yes, but it's also about being more efficient aerodynamically.
Right.
Bill Sweetman, he's an aviation expert, pointed out the huge wings you see on concepts like Tempest and the J-36. They give more lift, make it more efficient.
And more room inside for fuel, too, I guess.
Exactly, more internal volume. Group Captain Bill from the RAF actually said a requirement for Tempest is crossing the Atlantic on one tank.
The Atlantic. Without refueling.
Yeah. A Typhoon, the current British jet, needs, what, 3 or 4 mid-air refuelings to do that?
Wow. That really paints a picture of the difference. That changes everything operationally.
It really does. And think about those refueling tankers themselves. They're becoming vulnerable, too, to missiles like that Chinese PL-17.
So you can't rely on them as much. The fighters need the range built in.
Right. Plus, Group Captain Bill also mentioned, longer range gives you options. You can fly less direct routes, go around heavily defended areas like, say, Russian air defenses, more flexibility.
So these aren't just fighters anymore. They sound like long-range strike platforms almost. I heard Bill Sweetman call the Chinese J-36 an airborne cruiser. What's that about?
That's a great analogy, I think. It suggests the J-36 is built for range, stealth, carrying a big load, maybe less focused on, super tight turning dogfights.
Prioritizing reach and punch over agility.
Seems like it. And Group Captain Bill said something similar about Tempest. A key requirement is a large weapons payload, roughly double what an F-35 carries.
Double the weapons of an F-35. That's a lot of firepower. Why carry so much?
Well, the logic is pretty straightforward. If one plane can deliver twice the punch in one trip.
You need fewer planes flying into dangerous airspace. Fewer risky missions overall.
Exactly. Fewer sorties, less exposure to enemy defenses. Mike Price, who's advised the UK's MOD, summed it up nicely. The strategy is, stand off, don't be seen, shoot first, don't get into a knife fight.
Stay back, stay hidden, hit hard first. Okay. It also sounds like these things are getting incredibly complex internally. I saw the phrase flying supercomputers.
Oh, definitely. Roberto Cingolani, he's the CEO of Leonardo, one of the companies building Tempest. He used that exact phrase, flying supercomputers.
And the amount of data they're supposed to handle is just staggering.
It really is. Tim Robinson from the Royal Aeronautical Society, he reported Tempest is designed to process data equivalent to, get this, a medium-sized city's internet traffic every second.
A whole city's data? Per second? What are they doing with all that information?
The idea is data fusion, pulling in everything from radar, electronic signals, communications, everything from its own sensors and maybe from other sources too.
Yeah.
And then merging it all into one clear picture, sharing that picture almost instantly with other friendly forces, tanks, ships, maybe via satellite.
And AI plays a role in this.
A huge role, according to the vision. Cingolani talked about a central artificial intelligence helping the pilot make sense of it all, suggesting targets, picking weapons, timing attacks.
Wow.
Yeah, it sounds like science fiction, maybe. But that's the goal. Take all these puzzle pieces, radar blips, radio chatter, heat signals, and let the AI help build the complete picture of the battle.
AI making targeting decisions. Okay, that leads to the obvious question. If the plane's this smart, do you even need a pilot anymore? I know Elon Musk thinks piloted fighters are on the way out.
Yeah, that's the big debate, isn't it? Musk is definitely pushing that view. But most air forces, they seem to think we're not quite there yet.
Not ready for fully autonomous fighters.
Not completely. The AI just isn't seen as mature enough to handle everything a human pilot does, especially the unexpected. The RAF, for instance, they estimate full AI replacement might be possible, but maybe not until 2040 or so.
Okay, so still a ways off.
And it's interesting, you look at early concepts for the American F-47, they show a pretty big canopy. Suggests they definitely still see a pilot in there needing good visibility.
So pilots stick around for now.
Yeah.
What about really sensitive stuff like nuclear missions? Surely you'd want a human for that.
Absolutely. France is planning for its FCAS to carry nuclear weapons and that kind of mission. Almost certainly you'll always want direct human control, human decision-making, no question.
Makes sense. But even with a pilot, I keep hearing about these planes controlling drones, like wingmen. What's that about?
Right, that's the combat air system concept. The idea is the main 6th-gen fighter, the crewed one, acts as a command ship.
A mothership.
Sort of, yeah. Cingolani called it a flying aircraft carrier. The pilot isn't just flying, they're managing a team of uncrewed aircraft. Collaborative Combat Aircraft, or CCAs.
CCAs, okay.
The RAF even talks about the pilot becoming more of a weapons system officer, managing this whole network.
So less stick-and-order flying, more managing sensors and directing drones.
That seems to be the direction, overseeing the whole mission. And the U.S. Air Force, they're already ground testing CCA prototypes. Flight tests are planned soon.
Really? How many per fighter?
The initial thinking seems to be maybe 2 CCAs for each F-47, give or take.
And what would these CCA drones actually do?
A bunch of things, potentially. Frank Kendall, the U.S. Air Force Secretary, talked about them scouting ahead, finding targets, maybe even carrying extra weapons.
Acting as eyes and maybe extra shooters for the main fighter.
Exactly. But operating within line of sight, under tight control from the man's jet. That was Kendall's phrase. And Singalani mentioned that the heavy-duty computing for the drones, for their autonomy, that would probably happen back on the mothership, the crewed plane.
With data zipping back and forth instantly?
Yeah, through super secure high-bandwidth links. That secure communication is absolutely key to making the whole concept work.
This all sounds incredibly advanced, which means incredibly expensive, right?
Yeah.
What's the cost situation look like?
Yeah. Cost is a huge, huge factor. In fact, Frank Kendall, he actually put a pause on the F-47 development, partly because the projected cost was just astronomical.
How much are you talking?
Early estimates were maybe 2 or 3 times the cost of an F-35, so potentially $160, $180 million each.
Per plane.
Per plane. And at that price, you know, the U.S. might only be able to afford a small fleet, maybe only 200 or so.
That's a massive amount of money for not that many aircraft. Does that change the strategy?
It absolutely could. There's a growing argument inside the Pentagon. Maybe it's better to focus more on those CCAs first.
The drone?
Yeah. Develop lots of capable drones to work with the existing F-35s we already have. Maybe that's a more cost-effective way to boost capability quickly instead of pouring everything into a brand new, super expensive fighter that won't be ready for years.
A bird in the hand kind of argument?
Something like that. Justin Bronk, he's an air power analyst in the UK. He made an interesting point comparing it to World War II.
Oh, yeah?
He warned about focusing too much on a long-term, complex wonder weapon like the British Avro Vulcan bomber, which was amazing, but arrived late when what you really needed during the war was lots of good enough fighters like Hurricanes and Spitfires.
Quantity having a quality all its own.
Right. So the question becomes, if these top-tier jets are so expensive, do you end up with too few of them? Is the future a small number of exquisite jets leading swarms of cheaper drones? It's a major strategic debate.
It really is that quality versus quantity trade-off, just on a whole new scale.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive. What are the main things we should take away about these future fighters?
Well, I think the key things are 6th-gen jets are bigger, they're much stealthier, and they have way more range than what we have now.
Okay.
And they're built for network warfare. Think data fusion, AI, and working very closely with uncrewed drones, those CCAs. It's a real shift in concept.
And the big drivers behind all these changes. Why are we seeing this shift now?
It really comes down to 2 things. The threat from advanced air defenses is growing everywhere, and air combat itself is happening at much longer distances. Those 2 factors are fundamentally reshaping aircraft design and how air forces plan to fight. It's not just tweaking, it's rethinking.
So when you consider the huge cost and how fast technology changes,
Yeah.
it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What will air power actually look like in, say, 2040 or 2050?
Exactly.
Will these incredibly complex, expensive flying supercomputers be the game changer everyone hopes? Or could there be unintended consequences from relying so heavily on AI and these complex networked systems? Lots to think about. Thanks for exploring that with us.